It's June 11th, 2018, and I've got a little bit of the summertime sickness, so we're going to try to cure these illnesses with some fun board game news.
Starting off with a big news story, we've learned that Fantasy Flight will be ending their extremely popular LCG, Android Netrunner. What's really interesting about this is they're ending it because they lost the rights to half of the title of Android Netrunner. The game is composed of Android, which is that universe, but Netrunner is actually sort of the game mechanics, sort of how the game works with the cards and the deck and stuff, and that's actually from Wizards of the Coast, which has been licensing to Fantasy Flight all these years. This year, they've decided to not license it to them. So, starting October 22nd this year, Fantasy Flight will stop making all Android Netrunner products, including sleeves and playmats. This is a pretty big deal because this is one of their first really successful competitive LCGs, leaving a big hole in the LCG market, and frankly, it left ripples, making everyone worry for their own LCG favorites.
Yeah, they had just put out also kind of just a couple days after this announcement, this State of the LCGs article where they talked about with some of their designers about their other LCGs, Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, and kind of making it clear that they did plan to still go forward with those, at least for the next year or so, and, you know, don't worry about it. But I have to say, part of me is a little worried because we've seen in the last year kind of a few big blows to Fantasy Flight between this, also losing the Warhammer license, and just recently we talked about designer Nikki Valens leaving Fantasy Flight, who did Eldritch Horror and Mansions of Madness. And it does kind of seem like, man, these games with these properties and licenses these deals can evaporate in a blink of an eye, and you know, who knows, like maybe they won't have the Star Wars license forever. Maybe LucasArts or Disney or whoever will decide not to try somebody else for that. Maybe maybe Game of Thrones will think, maybe we want someone else to make our card games from now on. It is kind of scary that the idea that some of these games could just go away.
Well, it is very interesting to mention that because I feel like this one's is very different in the sense because the Warhammer one, for example, they lost the rights to the universe that was Warhammer.
Right.
But as we'll talk in a later story, it seems that the Warhammer card game, which was very popular, is going to be pretty much remade in a property they own. Yeah,
and in this case, because Netrunner was the mechanics, they can't just retheme it and push it out with a new theme.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is definitely interesting. And I have to wonder, as I think most people are wondering, did Wizards of the Coast, do they plan on using Netrunner for something? Or were they simply saying, this is a competitive card game, it's competing with Magic, why should we give this to them from now on?
Right. I mean, we'll see. I'm definitely very curious to know what their reasoning was behind it. I'm hoping it's more towards them making their own thing, because that's a little less spiteful.
Do you think we would see, like, Magic Netrunner or Dungeons and Dragons Netrunner or something like that?
I mean, maybe
Does that
they
even
want
make sense?
Maybe they want to make their own sci-fi universe. Might be a possibility. Because, I mean, at least when I think of Netrunner, just so many of the keywords are so... I almost felt like they're trying to avoid Magic in a way, but they're like, this is your hard drive. This is your, you know...
Yeah, well, of course, you know, the original design was from Richard Garfield, who also did Magic. So there was always kind of this weird relationship between Netrunner and Wizards and Fantasy Flight. It was this strange kind of love triangle. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But it's a big hole in their catalog for sure.
And then looking at the Android property, because they don't have to focus so much on the card game aspect, maybe we can see this either A, in more board games, or B, maybe even make an RPG based in that world. So I do think that Fantasy Flight could use this to their advantage.
There's even a chance they might just turn around and just relaunch a new LCG with the same universe, although I feel like that would be strange.
That would definitely be strange. But I mean, we've seen the Game of Thrones, and I guess the Game of Thrones and the Arkham Horror one do a reboot. The Netrunner one, because of the way it ended to me, and if they kept it competitive, it feels almost like, well, what about my old cards? A little bit annoying way.
It's a big blow either way to people who are players of the game, especially because the revised core set did not come out that long ago. So I think people, but at least for once they can't. you can get mad at Wizards of the Coast. At least Fantasy Flight can like sit back and be like, look, it's not our fault. We wanted to keep making money. Yeah, but we'll see. The game will still exist. Hopefully, it doesn't become super hard to get. But
well, that's the thing. Unlike, it's not. They literally said they won't be even releasing any products after. That's the big key. Like as soon as I heard that, because I actually have almost everything, I was like, all right, I'm gonna buy that new pack that just came out, so I can be prepared to just focus on the box.
Yeah, it sucks. It sucks when this happens. And with no notice, and that's just it. Yeah.
But hopefully, like I said, we'll maybe even see them take the Android universe to some cool new places, and make sure that the Five Rings and Game of Thrones LCG has a stronger competitive scene.
Just before the announcement that Android Netrunner would be coming to a close, Fantasy Flight also announced a brand new card game called Heroes of Terrinoth that is set in their rune-bound universe that you've seen in games like Descent. This is not an LCG, but a standalone card game from the designers of the Warhammer Adventure Quest card game, and in many ways it looks to be kind of a new retheming, reskinning of that game, with some improvements made to the mechanics, some polishing up. The Warhammer game is one that I got to play at Gen Con when it was first announced, and I really liked it. What is kind of fun about that game, it really recreates, in a way, the feel of a role-playing game, but in a card game style. So everyone has a unique class. It's going to have 4 to start in the base. There's a healer, mage, for example. And as you're playing, different enemies come out as cards, and you have different action types available to you. You can rest, you can attack, etc. And the enemies kind of move throughout to you, to someone else. Whoever they're in front of is who they're going to be attacking. And you're fully cooperating, working together to defeat the enemies, complete quests, which means cards turn and new locations will appear. So it's kind of in line with something maybe like, sort of like an Arkham Horror or LCG style, also similar to like the Shadowrun Crossfire game that we played.
I was literally thinking like, didn't we just play a game where we were putting things in front of us?
A lot like that, but not a deck builder. That's really the big difference. It's not an LCG.
Yeah, we were actually curious, because when I first saw it, I was like, wait, so this isn't an LCG, but it's a card game? And But apparently LCG would imply that you make your deck beforehand. So it's not like a deck, that doesn't count deck builders because you make your deck while playing. This is sort of like when Magic the Gathering or Arkham, where you sort of, you have to have prep time. There's no prep time, you sort of just choose your class, I think.
Yeah, and by the same token, there's no collectible aspect of it. And you'll never need or want multiple copies of a card, at least as far as I can tell. And so I think it's kind of cool. I mean, I'm glad they're bringing it back, because that Warhammer game really just kind of fizzled out. It was like people liked it.
Yeah, I didn't get the chance to play. I remember you saying how you liked it. And it was one of those things, almost just like how sometimes we see a game that just starts and all of a sudden they lose the license, as we've been talking about in our earlier story.
Yeah, that was this, for sure.
Definitely. And we've said many times that Fantasy Flight has some really great universes to take advantage of. So it just seems like a no-brainer to take their Runebound universe and put it to good use.
Yeah, it is a fun universe. I mean, I think it's a little, it's a touch generic. There's not like, it is definitely derivative of every other fantasy universe, but I really do like the art style and like the characters that exist in it. I think they are fun.
I do, and the other thing that why I'm okay with it is, one, it's like, because they're a big board game company, it's like they have one. It's like, so this is our generic medieval Dragons Knights universe. But because they've worked on it so much, I've seen like, I remember Descent being like, oh, this character looked interesting, out of mind. Then like a while later, I think it was like a Rune Age expansion. I'm like, I recognize that person. So they have made it so if you do play across the games, you will see similarities between enemies and characters, which is, even if it starts off looking generic, it's sort of nice to be like, yeah, I remember you. I hate you so much for closing doors on me or something when the Shadow Lord.
That always happens. And Fantasy Flight owns that property, so we don't ever have to worry about this game ending before it's too late.
At least not by someone else's hand. Asmodee Digital has announced it's going to start releasing games on the Nintendo Switch. And it's going to be starting off with Carcassonne this winter. If it wasn't obvious from the shirt I'm wearing, and probably the way we've talked in previous news stories, we're excited about this. We like Nintendo.
Yeah, it's the week of E3, right? So this is sort of our little video game story.
Yeah, we're actually recording this before Nintendo, so we don't know if they'll say anything then.
I kind of doubt they'll include
but you
press
never
conference. You never know. And of course, they also said that this, like you said, this is the start with Carcassonne. So I'm sure we're going to see more. They have Asmodee Digital has so many Mysterium. Colt Express. I mean, they have a ton of them.
Yeah, and I think the Switch is a perfect home for a board game system. I mean, we've talked about some cool ideas, even using the Switch as like an RPG, like to have that as your dungeon screen, almost.
Yeah, it would be very cool. Yeah, I mean, basically any board game that comes out as an app on a tablet, there's no reason it can't also be on the Switch. It works just as well. It will be interesting to see how the controls work, because on a tablet, I think it's exclusively touchscreen. Will there be an option, probably, hopefully, to play it on your TV? And if so, can you then also do local multiplayer with the Joy-Cons, or will it be more like limited where you have to pass back and forth?
Right.
Hopefully they customize it for the system.
But yeah, I'm definitely excited for this. Maybe we'll even see some special like Nintendo versions of some of the games.
Now that would be fun. Little Mario meeples. We've got word of the next big storyline in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. It's taken us all the way back to Waterdeep in Waterdeep Dragon Heist. This is going to be their newest campaign book that will have a great new storyline. Hopefully it's great. I don't know. I'm just guessing. In which the players will be trying to track down a big treasure hoard before it can be used for nefarious purposes. There's some really cool stuff in this book. First off, it's going to be able to be used as a source book for Waterdeep in general. So even if you do not want to necessarily run this storyline, if you want to just have different campaigns throughout Waterdeep, this is going to let you take all kinds of things from that city, the world, the lore, items that might be present there. And there's some cool tweaks in there for DMs. For instance, it's going to have 4 different villains involved, and they can choose which one they want, and each villain is associated with a different season that will change the way the campaign is formed as you play. And characters that play throughout this campaign are also going to have their own kind of little property of Waterdeep, so that during downtime for their campaign, it sounds like you're going to be able to kind of work on that zone and improve it and add things to it.
Yeah, I actually plan to flip houses in Waterdeep.
Yeah, that's something that you definitely could do.
But, I mean, we've seen with all their, at least a lot of the recent ones, that they've really been taking that, like, remember those really iconic things from back from even old, like original D&D? Let's bring that back up. And so it's really nice, I think, to introducing the new players, such as, I mean, me, didn't really start playing till 5th, or even old veterans to these worlds that were once famous, so they can continue to be, these big iconic landmarks for Dungeons & Dragons.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I mean, everybody loves Waterdeep, right? And this is coming out in September, so not too much longer before you can look forward to it. And WizKids, of course, has also announced they're going to have a line of minis to go with it, so if you're doing all those minis and all that, you'll be set to go. Apparently heists are really big these days as well. What's up with that? Everything is a heist now, right? All these movies and...
Well, there's always a theme going on.
That's the next zombies, is heists.
Looks like we can't leave things in the past. Just like last week, we have another game released a long time ago being reprinted and with some new modifications. Condon PLA, which I'm horribly mispronouncing, which I apologize for, was released back in around 1995, but now is getting a new release edition from Z-Man Games. This will actually have a bigger board, because apparently the board was a little smaller and people had to crowd around, as well as some new modernizing the rules, and a 2-player variant. Yeah, I had no idea that this game existed, but I did find out that this is the game that the Gwent card game was based on in the Witcher series, which I had played a little bit of Gwent within the Witcher games, so that's kind of cool. And apparently, yeah, like you said, people loved this game. One of the big selling points was that it's a small box and kind of a low component count, but a pretty deep game, all about like trying to conquer different regions of Italy, basically. So I like Gwent, so it sounds like it's cool. It's fun to see people being excited for it and seeing games from 20 years ago coming back into the new age. I mean, yeah, we've enjoyed Restoration Games with their line, and we, as I said, we reported earlier on a game being brought back. I'm totally blanking on the Chaos.
Yeah, Chaos, the Chaos game.
Something with Chaos in it. I'm totally blanking. I apologize to fans, but I also love, because I got into board games a little late, just being able to finally maybe see these games that where before I hadn't really gotten to board games and get a chance to play them again.
Yeah, Restoration Games can't hog all these old games. They'll give Z-Man a chance. Not too long ago, Fun Again Games, the online board game store, announced that they were closing their doors. They had a bunch of clearance sales to get rid of their warehouse inventory, and having done so, they have now announced that they will actually be relaunching themselves in a new format. They are still going to be selling games online, but this time around they are narrowing their focus to board games that are harder to find. Games possibly from overseas or Kickstarter runs that aren't in as large supply that hopefully you'll be able to get more readily from them. They're also going to be working more with Kickstarter developers closely to specifically manufacture and work with their games, have those games sold through their store, sometimes exclusively, as they have done in the past. So it is a little bit of a turnaround. People thought they were going to be going away forever, and it sounds like they probably knew in the back of their heads that this was their plan from the start. So it's sort of a bait and switch, although I don't know that the switch is really a bad thing. It's just kind of a surprise to see. But I guess it sounds like a good thing that they're sticking around, and hopefully this is a niche that they will excel in.
Maybe this will be where you find you're finishing up your Android Netrunner collection.
Yeah, it could be the last place you have to go.
So that's our news for June 11th, 2018. We really want to know your thoughts on this, especially with the Fantasy Flight and Android Netrunner. Were you a big player? Is this bad news for you? Are you going to be able to just switch over to the other ones? Are you hoping that, as you suggested, that may make a whole new card game that just isn't Netrunner?
Yeah, are you going to wait for Android whatever? Are you going to hope Wizards of the Coast puts Netrunner out? Or are you just going to keep on playing your same old core set and expansions you already have, I guess?
And of course, we are currently running a contest to give away some cool games. We're giving away the Ricks Must Be Crazy. We have 4 copies to give away. There will be a link down below. Just pretty simple, and you get a whole bunch of entries. Really cool.
Yeah, definitely check all of that out. You want to win some games. I know that you do. But hey, until we see you again next time, I'm Jonathan.
I'm Will.
And this has been Roll for Crit News.
Hey, if you like what you saw, don't forget to subscribe and like this video for more excellent board game content.
Heck yeah!